Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Loona and Octavia? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. The night clouding the entire village could be described by any passing onlooker to be one of calm and serene tranquility, amplified by the beams of light casting down illuminating portions of settlement. Deep within the forest located outside the outskirts of the town was any but tranquil as the bustling noise of a large crowd carrying through a narrow passage of the woods. Many within the crowd were mostly locals of Konohagakure, with a few high-end officials leading the pack up front. The sight of a large crowd walking together at night may not have been seen as anything out of the ordinary if it weren't for the fact that they continued to trek deeper into the vastness of the forest of darkness, spread around them flickered with life as the torches used to illuminate the night made for quite the eerie scene. The noise of clattering metal ranged out as many carried on hand an assortment of makeshift weapons consisting of steel rods, sharpened shivs, and curved knives. The noise, though distinct, could not overshadow the shrill shouting coming out from a brown burlap sack, struggling to break free, all while violently being dragged by the tail end of the group on the dirt pavement. "Let me out. Shut it, you sniveling little shit," said one of the members of the group walking beside the bag, who proceeded to viciously land multiple kicks to the front part of the sack, leaving a red stain start to seep out. "The less noise from you the better. I can't breathe." Wham. White. "Don't lose your breath, Taishi, no one is going to interrupt us in what we're gonna do." Still looking around him nervously at the prospect of being watched from the shadows. "What if some of the Anbu are here with us watching our every move? And you think that you'll manage to spot one out? They're not members of the elite squad for nothing. You know how they like to tail the kid around everywhere, he never leave him unchecked for too long, the Hokage personally makes sure of that. You worry too much," turning his head around to level a gaze at his friend. "The Anbu are not going to bother us here. The boss has assures us that they won't stick their noses in what we have planned with the demon spawn." But nothing, he cut him off sharply with narrowed eyes. "The old man is not gonna find out absolutely nothing. If by chance people start to notice the brat missing, then I'll be too late to do anything about it. By night's end we will be done with what we came here, got that?" "Yeah, I got it." Oimo still not sounding sure about the possibility of getting into serious trouble with the law. "Quit your bitching and don't say anything else," once more looking ahead of him as they came across a huge open field surrounded by tall oak. "Besides, we're already here." The location that the group decided to stop at was barren enough to set up an encampment. No words had to be spoken as with quick timing and precision a huge stack of wood was soon piled on in the center of the field. The ignition of the bonfire was made by the kindled sparks flickered by a lit cigarette thrown by the long-robed individual whose face was completely shrouded by the hood of his clothing. The fire was instantaneous as a huge blanket of plume smoke rose upwards onto the cleared sky. "Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for tonight's participation in seeking justice for our dearly departed who were taken by us in the most violent of matters by this unholy abomination." As if on cue, the two men among the crowd responsible for dragging the bag with the child inside ripped open the package and dumped said child onto the ground near the feet of the speaker. Naruto himself looked as if he had seen better days, as his entire appearance looked as if he were put through the ringer, as much of his clothing were disheveled, teared all over, and covered in stains ranging from his blood to the dirt that he was hauled through for the past couple of miles. It didn't do him any favors to his damaged image as the kicks he received earlier in part by the disgruntled goon to his head that a small gash on the side slowly trickled down blood. This deterrent to God's creatures is responsible for the pain and misery that beveled all of us 8 long years. Pointing at him with his long crooked finger. The anguish he caused by his birth that unleashed the gruesome demon fox that left in its wake nothing but death and destruction. To further cement his point, he grabbed both ends of his hood and with a sharp tug, unveiled a heavily scarred face to the surrounding crowd. If words were used to describe the image presented to everyone in attendance that night, it would have probably been a shared sentiment among themselves. His face was nothing more but a piece of mangled meat stretching from the back of the cranium to the upper front of his face, as it was almost covered with deep lacerated scars. For starters, if he had one hair it was completely gone by this point, as his shaven head contained a bulk of the cuts, layering much of the top with a few on the sides, and a deep gash traveling downwards over his left eye. The damaged tissue that once held the eyeball was no longer in its rightful state, as the once healthy spherical organ was milky white, joined together by a blackened slash that connected with a jagged scar running down the face. The injury didn't end there, as the lower part of his right jaw was missing a chunk of flesh that extended underneath the right ear, exposing much of the pinkish gums housing what remained of his teeth, ending with a steady stream of drool cascading onto the dirt below. All in all, not a pretty sight to see. This face alongside that of the rest of my body were heavily scarred the day that the QB rampaged through Konoha now, removing his entire garb that showed even more extensive damage, blanketing the front of his body, together with wooden prosthetics replacing both legs and half of his left arm. So damaged riddled that it was beyond repair that no amount of surgery could fix the harm inflicted upon me. But my body was not the sole reason as to my harbored anger and grief that I felt this past 8 years, now tightening his right hand as hard as he could to the point of having the knuckles turning completely white. No, it was that pain of having witnessed the death of my entire family as the beast ripped through my home, killing them instantly, his sole working eye now displaying an unwarranted amount of anger directly aimed at the child in front of him who continued to quiver in fear. I don't even have you voice out your grievances and how the 9 tails affect each and every one of you. A sound of unanimous agreement sounded off throughout the crowd as some began to shout at the child of their shared tragedy. You killed my son. My father was crushed by its paw. Both my children were ripped to shreds by that monster. My innocent wife burned to death when our apartment caught on fire. You crippled my parents. Naruto in all of this could only look upon the crowd in utter disbelief at the types of accusations that were thrown at him. What in the world are they even talking about? It didn't take a split second for him to voice out his own retort and what they were yelling about. You got it all wrong, I never did none of those things. You must have the wrong person. Feeling a looming shadow over, he turned once more to see the hateful gaze of the leader staring down him before being lifted up from ground from the helm of his shirt that could be heard letting out a series of tears as a result of the strain added on it. No mistake was made when we decided to bring you here, leaning his face closer to the Jinchuriki's own, who in response had to reel his head back in disgusted foul breath attacking his sense of smell. We all know what you have crawling inside your stomach and what we want is to make it suffer as he made us suffer. How are why you gonna do that? Quivering at the mouth as felt his nails dig into the skin of his chest. By cutting a pound flesh from your back and sending you straight to hell alongside that ravenous beast, with it capping it off with a fling of his wrist, sending the poor boy onto the earth and ending it with a loud snap of his fingers. A pair of strong arms soon took hold of the youngster before he could gather his bearings. After being thrown hard, he felt himself once more dragged to the opposite side of the fire pit to be tightly bound by a coarse rope that dug deep into his wrist bone in between 2 trees. The bounding of his hand soon evolved to having his lower legs also tied up, forcing him to be suspended in place, unable to move. The position he was now placed in made it impossible to move, and the robbing didn't do him any favor, as each action he tried to make to free himself only had the effect of shredding the flesh from both his exposed appendages. Though his attention was drawn to the approaching crowd, who got too close for comfort, all of whom had pure hatred in their eyes and the raising of their weapons. The scarred man then positioned himself in the middle of the crowd, but instead of having a weapon he had decrepit brown leather dot. Before we commence with our rightful retribution, we shall first prepare the seal of calamity to lay open the door to the Harem, but we can only accomplish this with the blood of the sacrificial lamb. Are they talking about me being the lamb or someone else? He didn't have to ponder over the thought for much long as he quickly turned his head at the dirt patch road that they came in to hear the sound of wailing heralding towards them, accompanied by the thundering of heavy steps that soon revealed themselves employees from a family-run butcher shop. Sorry for being late, it took a bit for us to find a healthy lass to bring over, he stated once he got close to the group together with his companion, who helped lead the creature on its leash. It didn't do us any favor in avoiding the guards at the front gate. You couldn't just pick any runt from the litter to cut open. It wouldn't have worked, we need an animal to be in top condition for the ritual to go without a hitch. Enough, said the leader with a raised hand to cease further conversation. All that matters is that the sacrificial offering is here and that we can begin with the summoning. Disgruntled at the small talk before turning to face to his 2 closest subordinates. Hideki, Jin, you 2 know what to do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Both said in loud unison. They immediately set forward to start scribbling down hieroglyph characters within the soil by starting from opposite ends until finishing the design by conjoining their end of the drawing. The mark that was laid out was completely foreign for the child, as he had never seen such a symbol in his life, but felt the dread in the pit of his stomach grow at what his kidnappers had in mind of going to such a length of taking him to the middle of the forest at night, tied up against his will between the oak evergreen. What in the world is that symbol, and why is it shaped like a star? Oh, Lord of Death, please grant us passage to the land of devils, so that we could claim the justice that we so rightfully deserve. Shouting upwards to the cloudless night as his soul working eye glinted with untold malevolence. Heed our words to achieve our revenge. The defensibles creature brought over only looked on towards its surroundings in complete confusion, as it was in its nature and wouldn't have fathomed what laid in store for him after this night. That was until it felt the foreign feeling of a cold serrated steel casually go through its neck, cutting the jugular vein effortlessly, and knew no more as he felt its consciousness slip away. The blood flowed freely as it drained itself from the dead corpse, which quickly pooled messily in the sanctum of the pentagram, leaving a dark circle filled with blood in its wake. Then the chanting began. In tenebris, in qua venit ante lapsum, I.M.P tuum potestatem superhumanum reni, et conjungere nostris duo simul und et nos, ut simul in exchange, et sacrificium. The booming voices of the mob was all that could be heard as the sound of their chanting echoed throughout all four corners of the woods. Libera nos quid sumus, policitus. Upright portas inferi. As if all sound in the forest of death was snuffed out instantly, the only sound to be heard was that of the hassled breathing of the group, with one growing impatient of the lack of action. Now, Boom. The sudden explosion caught many off guard by such intensity that made even the large bonfire near them seem inadequate when it was first lit. But for one in particular, he was all but quite delighted at the outcome. Rejoice everyone. We shall soon greet our esteemed guests who will lift us from our Urbutin and deliver what is owed to us. Now sporting a Cheshire grin as he stared at the whirling ring of fire that emitted an intense heat, the likes of which he has never felt before. Soon all their prayers will be answered. A few minutes earlier. City downtown district. In the down below, the noise of a bustling metropolis made its presence known for miles on end, and as the sign of life and death echoed throughout the many crevices of this sinful city on all hours of the day. Deep within this sprawling municipality was to be found a large complex of a building that stood out among the rest, was its large protruding horns colored in black and white sticking from its sides. The look of the structure seemed as an odd sight, but given its surroundings, it was far from unique. Those inside said building were an entirely different matter altogether. Damn it, Moxie. I just had that cleaned yesterday. How's it my fault? What do you think was gonna happen if you just left it there by itself? I blamed you first, so that buck ends with you needle beep. I still can't believe I ever agreed to work here, rubbing the bridge of his nose with utter contempt at his dimwit of a boss. Sorry to break to ya Mox, but it was more around the likes of you being beep whipped by that wife of yours. Ain't that right, Looney? Definitely beep whipped. Oh, shut up. Without us you two would be flat broke and living on the streets if it weren't for me and my wife's help. Looking at the two in front of him with nothing short but contempt. You both should count yourselves lucky to even have employees at all. Hey, I'll have you know that I pitched in the funds for us to even have an office space to make us look legit. Screwing the head boss is not considered working hard, Blitzo. Listen here, you pompous little shit, I'm the only boss that you'll ever have when you walk through that door, not that lanky bird feeder, me. Placing himself directly in Moxie's face to the point of butting heads. Are you? Because you surely don't act like one, he said as he stared directly into Blitzo's eyes. The moment was soon cut short as the loud slamming of the door kicked open by Mox's wife made everyone turn their heads in her general direction. I finally got it. Took forever, but I finally found my lucky knife. She then quickly quieted down as she felt the tension in the room. What I miss? Oh, nothing Mills, just your husband telling how happy he is working here and how much he cares for to the point of having his paid doc to keep this business running smoothly. Is that true, Mox? I never said anything like that. Looking at his wife in his usual nervous tone. He's just full of it, Mills. Is that true, boss? Sounding a bit wary over the remark. Nah, don't sweat too much over it, we are just joking around, draping his arm over his short employee. Ain't that right, Mox? Yeah, just a joke. Oh good, for a second there I thought you meant it, putting a hand over her chest, sighing in relief. It would have made our finances more strained than they already were, living in an apartment in the city is not cheap. We get by fine with what we got, walking over to her and placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. The apartment is just a temporary setback, if we can just get a couple of good hits, we can afford to one day buy home for ourselves. Really? Of course, and who knows, maybe this family of two can be a family of three. You mean that? Every word. The moment sweet and endearing was soon cut short by their former clown turned entrepreneur boss, who quickly inserted themselves between the two. Alright, enough of that sentimental crap, we still have a job to do, he stated as he sat himself on the company long stable. We've wasted too much time waiting for Millie, and we can't afford to lose this contract. Sorry. Don't worry about it, all that matters is that you're finally here, waving his hand nonchalantly. Okay, Loona gives us an overview on the assignment so we can avoid any fuck-ups. On it. Knew I can count on you, sweetie. Ignoring that, the name of client is one Barbara Finkelhorn, S.H. DFFT. Finkelhorn, with a name like that no wonder she ended up in hell. Anyways, Ms. Fink hired us to kill her ex-husband and his new mistress, apparently both of them roofied her to stage a fake drunk driving incident. She stated as she narrowed her eyes in annoyance at the interruption from Blitz. The job is to prevent them from inheriting her immense wealth. Immense? How much are talking about here? A couple of grand, a mil? What amount did they settle on to kill the bitch? About $250 million in savings. Holy shit, I know this is hell, and human currency is worth as much as toilet paper, but goddamn how she managed to save up that type of wattage. Well, apparently she owned a chain of care centers that catered to the rehabilitation of homeless people, drug addicts, and mental patients, Loona explained as she scrolled down her phone reading the entirety of the portfolio. Among those were also multiple non-profits that aided in the distribution of supplies to countries affected by natural disasters. By the sound of it, she deserves to be in heaven instead of down here, Moxie said as he and his wife prepared themselves for their mission. How can a woman such as herself end up becoming a sinner? Not quite, by the looks of it, she accidentally killed a homeless person during her teenage years, but was able to be exempt from any criminal charges, as her rich father bribed the judge to throw away the case. So this whole charitable work was to amend her sin by pursuing a philanthropy lifestyle to atone for her mistake she committed. Pretty much. I could just image the surprise in her face when she woke up in hell, despite the long years she put in to help the needy, God choose throwing wretch, goes to show how he's always screwing you over with the little things. Kinda sad, when you think about it. Now don't start to get too sappy over the client's mocks, we only provide with the killing not giving a shit about their woes and misery snapping his fingers in front of his face that further added to Mox's discomfort. Besides I'm starting have second thoughts of helping the old prune. Why didn't her story move you in the slightest? Fuck no. I could have cared less about her sob story, my gripe with her was about helping the homeless. Sir, not homeless thing again bemoaned Moxie who at this point was sick of hearing about Blitzo's obsession with the destitute. Can't we just go a single day without having to hear about your infatuation with the homeless? Oh come on, I do not bring that all the time. Yeah you do every day said both Millie and Loona at the same time. Whatever, we're still on the clock people, Loona be a dear and open the portal, the sooner we kill this asshole and his side piece the sooner we can get back richer than ever. Thought you'll never ask with it she pulled out the grimoire from under the desk from where she was sitting. It didn't take long for her to crack open the ancient text to fully summon a doorway towards the human world. While we are on the same subject, can we have a moment to talk about Loona's role in the company once we complete our assignment, Mox interjected as he and his wife got close to the swirling portal. What is there to talk about? She's a valuable member to our corporate family. I'll use quotations on the word valuable. Bite me, fatty. Up yours, you little brat. He yelled as his wife wrapped her around him as an attempt to calm him down. Calm down, Mox before setting her gaze at her boss. I agree with Moxie on this, maybe we could find someone else with more experience. What's wrong with my little loony? She's everything we could hope to ask for putting a heavy empathy on as he tightly hugged the young hellhound against his cheek, resulting in Loona growling silently at the personal touching. She's a kid and a horrible one at that. I wouldn't phrase like Mox did boss, but yeah she's pretty terrible. Put a sock in for now and let's go kill these fuckers. But that with a bit of reluctance on Moxie's part all three imps soon jumped through the portal and were met with the oddest sight all three could imagine. Who the fuck are you people? The present now. The sound of cackling timber from the campfire helped to generate the only source of sound as both groups stayed deadly still as they both looked at each other in complete silence. Sir, I think we're at the wrong location, Moxie whispered with a low voice to Blitzo. You think? He snarky responded back as he eyed cautiously at the armed crowd of humans in front of them. Must be at least 20 of them did the tall imp thought to himself. Millie stayed quiet, but ever valiant at the prospect of having to fight their way through a mob of humans as confirmed by the firm grip she had on the hilt of her favorite blade, indicated her anxiousness to be given the signal to fight. That was until she heard the sound of whimpering behind her that her eyes widening in shock. Hey fellas, you might want to turn around and look at this. Whatever it is Mills, can it wait for later, because right now is not the best time. You really got to see this she stated once more, but with a more urgent tone. Honey, what could be so important, oh crumbs. Christ, what the hell has gotten into you two? What's so important to get this? He started, but soon paused mid-word at the sight that lay in front of him. What caused all three imps to be deadly silent was that of a small child tied between two trees who looked worse for wear as his entire clothing was ripped and tarnished to the point of being considered nothing but rags. His physical state paled in comparison as much of his body had seemed to have been beaten within an inch of his life. It shocked all three imps in the brutality that was distributed to this poor child. Marvelous isn't it? We had him all prepped up for your arrival said the speaker as he stood next to Blitz who was startled at his appearance. We were beginning to get a bit antsy if by chance nothing were to happen, he finished this as he walked over to Naruto's side, who desperately tried to place some distance between them only to fail miserably. What for exactly? Asked Moxie with narrowed eyes as he immediately took an instant dislike to the man talking. To take this demon child back to hell. Finishing his point by violently grabbing the boy's chin resulting in a heavy blow landing to the side of the head with the prosthetic appendage. To say that the imps were disgusted by the act was an understatement, especially from Millie, who gritted her teeth in anger. We opened a portal to hell as a means of having Satan's followers bring us justice by taking this spawn back from whence it came. He raved on such a lunatic would. Minions. Bitch, I am no one's errand boy. Shouted Blitzo, whose comment caught many of the humans off guard on the grass language. And FYI Dumbus, that kid is not a demon, if he were we would have sensed. Pardon me? Now confused at the words aimed at him by the horned imp. I said he's not a goddamn demon. Impossible. He is one, has the QB's reincarnation in the flesh, a monster of unholy proportion. The fuck's a QB? Sir, I think that means fox. I believe it to be a Japanese mythological creature, Mox informed him as he continued to stay wary of the company around them. Who gives a shit, Mox? We are wasting our time dealing with these backwards ass hicks instead of dealing with our target. Getting angrier at every passing moment they weren't doing their job. Just forget about these clowns and get to the office. Loona can open the right portal this time. What about the boy? Leave him, Mox, he's not our concern. The job is waving his hand up in the air without a care about the child's well-being. Besides, it's not like we're able to take him with us. Maybe we can, sir, interject Millie, who stayed silent on the matter but voiced out her opinion at the idea of saving the wounded kid. Are you out of your mind? We can't just take human child to hell, that's against protocol. If we were to take with us, then we would all end up Schitt's Creek, with Hell's Council. Blitz added in his attempt on knocking the idea out of Millie's head. And last time I checked, being alive was something that I enjoy and I won't jeopardize over some half-dead brat. He then looked at Moxie, who was staring at his wife with worry in his eyes. Come on, Moxie, knock some sense into that wife of yours. Now dragged into the conversation, Mox started at the two, knowing that he was the one that would have to break this tiebreaker. He also knew that the decision he was about to make would end up having severe consequences on either choice. What would it be, Mox? Because I say leave the kid behind. Mox, please side with me on this, we can't just leave him like this crowd are going to kill him if we don't help. Speak the fuck, Mox. What's it gonna be? Closing his eyes a brief moment, he took a calming breath before reopening them again to make his opinion heard. Let's bring him with us. He was soon glommed on by Millie, who gave him a back-breaking hug. Thank you. For shit's sake, did the lanky devil moan out as he rubbed his temple with his hand as he could feel the forming of a migration start to hit. Not quite anticipating the type of reaction from such creatures, as in his mind they would greatly accept his offering of ripping the forsaken orphan apart, but instead had to hear of them wanting to care for the child's well-being. This proved to be something that he was heavily against, as he wanted blood to shed, not some back and forth bickering from these horned freaks. Hey! He shouted with eyes livid with rage. What? Can't you see we're having a conversation here, asshole? Replied Blitz over his shoulder, as he did not care enough to even warrant looking over his direction to the scarred human. Now wait just a damn moment. Peeved at such disrespect from lowly beings, I summoned you here to have you kill this child, not wanting to care for him. I spend an entire ransom's worth in obtaining the necessary texts to even open a gateway to hell for a specific reason, not for this nonsense. Well, by the sound it sort of sounds like a you problem, as I could give a flying fuck in what you though was gonna happen. So tough shit. Finn hissing it off with his trademark shit grin at the sight of the fuming face of the summoner. Unfortunately for you, I do mind. With a low whistle, his cohort soon approached the three imps as they raised their weapons that glinted by the fire's light that matched the bloodthirstiness in their eyes. Now what do you have say now, you red-dotted clown? Maybe this. Wham. Before he knew what hit him, the leader of the group's eyes rolled to the back of his head as he fell backwards with a trail of blood gushing out from the center of his forehead, courtesy of the Blitz's crackshot aim. This had the effect of everyone other than the imps stopping mid-track in their steps, as they were all shocked in how quickly one of their own were killed. Though they didn't have time to contemplate what happened, as a hail of bullets soon started to spray all over the group from Moxie's rapid-fire rifle that picked off 6 more from the crowd, with additional 5 from Millie's quickness from her sharpened blades that cut down those closest to her. It didn't take long for the rest, fortunate to not find a bullet lodge inside of them, to quickly scatter, as they could hope to handle such a vicious attack from these demonic monsters. Now stood a field devoid of any other human other than Naruto, and some of the corpses left rotting on the ground, and 3 red assassins who were not converging to the young blonde with the intention of freeing him. Please see, don't kill me, he whimpered out slowly as he saw how they looked and what they were capable of. You don't have to worry about us doing anything of the sorts, Millie replied softly as he quickly untied the ropes around his joints and helped to carry him, as he could not possibly stand on his 2 legs as injured as they were. Ray. Lie. You betcha. We'll take you somewhere safe. That's Ray. Lie nigh. See to he. R. The last part was slurred as he soon went quiet. Is he okay? Asked Mox, who worried about the boy's condition. Yeah, he just passed out from exhaustion. He better have, because this would have been a major waste time if he ended up dying after all of that. Charming sir, real charming, the gun expert stated with a heavy dose of sarcasm in his voice. When you're the boss, you just gotta know when to say the right thing. Can we please just go back to the office and get the job done with? Before Blitzo could answer back, he noticed a strange glow start to emit from underneath the clothing of the man who he recently shot through the head. Quickly running over the dead carcass, he turned over the body and saw a book with strange symbols carved all over its cover, cloaked in a red shine. So this what the fucker used to direct us here, grabbing onto the text and putting inside his coat pocket. Okay, now let's get the hell out of here. With nothing else to keep them there, Blitz hurried back to the portal and jumped through it, soon followed by Mox and Millie with their new guest in tow. The office, devoid of the three imps, made for an empty, noiseless space that was a bit depressing for Loona, as she was never one to be left alone by herself. Something that stuck with her since her years at the pound. Looking up at the clock, she noticed that it was already 10 past 2, about 2 hours since they had left. I bet they're having all the fun right now, she thought to herself as she scrolled down her phone, making sure that this month's hit list was prepped and ready to go once they were done with their current one. The moment was soon broken as the portal in the center space of the room lit up as the figures of the company employees soon revealed themselves. This would not have been out of the norm for the Hound, but the sight of a human being lugged by both Mox and Millie surprised the young girl. Is that what I think it is? She asked as she got off from the desk and her way towards their slumbering guest. Oh, him? Yeah, we brought him with us because these, pointing at his workers, couldn't stop bitching about his health. This was the right thing to do, Blizz. He would have died of exposure if we didn't take him with us, Mox commented as him and wife gently placed him on the couch nearest to them. Mills, I'll go fetch the first aid kit, stay with the boy and make sure that he doesn't go into shock. Right. Now wait just a damn minute, we still have a job to do. Blitz imputed as he stepped forward while looking at the time. Loona, can you open another portal to the human world? You haven't completed the job yet. Surprised that they are not done yet. We can't afford to screw up a simple job like this. If we do, then we can kiss this office goodbye. We were a bit sidetracked by some crazy cult. Blitzo explained as he took out the book used for summoning. They used this to send the portal you made and connect it to theirs. How in the world did they manage to land a book like this? I thought that the grimoire we had was the only method to travel between both worlds. Honey, you're asking the wrong person about this. Maybe I can help, Blitzy. Oh, fuck. Suddenly all light in the room became void as if it were sucked out instantly by a dark vacuum, only to subside quickly as the form of a blue dark feathered creature soon unraveled to reveal a familiar face. Stolas, whatever it is, can it wait for later? I'm kinda busy at the moment, he said as he rubbed his eyes in annoyance of having to talk to his least favorite person right now. Ah, aren't you just a bit happy to see me? Stolas said as towered over Blitzo with a gleeful expression on his white porcelain face. Can't I just stop by to say hello to my dear partner? Only in business, Stolas. Whatever you say. Sensing a strong aura emit in the room, he looked to spot two distinct levels of power, hailing from the book Blitzo had in his left hand and the young child being attended to by the female imp. His eyes widening at the moment he was able to make out the human currently in their midst. Lily felt a shiver run down her back as she felt a dark shadow fall over her as Stolas casually waltzed over to her spot to get a closer look at the human boy. What do we have here? He thought to himself as looked over the state of the blonde and noticed the awful condition it was in. What happened to this poor child? He was tortured by the group of humans who intended to sacrifice him to demons, replied Millie, who felt a bit nervous of being too close to the Gosha Lord. I'm waiting on Mox to bring the health kit to patch him up. Don't worry, I'll have fixed up in no time. With a wave of his hand, Stolas muttered a couple of words in a strange language unheard by those around him that resulted in purple glow to shroud his right hand. With a quick wave, the boy took up a purple hue that had the effect of healing his wounds instantly. Hey Millie, I finally found the med kid. How's he? Mox was caught off at the sight of Stolas healing the kid. Never mind. They're all better now. Better would have been the right choice of words if it weren't for the glow surrounding the boy that soon turned to a shade of red that bubbled heatly. What's happening to him? Asked Molly, who now stood next to Mox and soon joined by both Blitzo and Loona. I may have gone a bit overboard with the spell, Stolas remarked as he took a few steps back at the source of power being let out by the human. Christ, what now? The sentiment was shared by everyone in the room, especially from the married couple who could only look on and worry as they saw the unconscious child be completely shrouded in a red cloak of energy. This wouldn't be the end of the strange occurrence as the child's physical body started to take a different shape at a rapid pace. The limbs themselves began to lengthen by a couple of inches, followed by its midsection being restructured alongside it. As fast as it came the source of light went with it, leaving the boy uncovered to the rest of the cast, who could only look on in shock at what lay in front of them. "Now this is something that I did not anticipate," said Stolas with narrow eyes as he looked over the drastic transformation that had just taken place. Millie and Loona themselves could only stare in total silence at what occurred, with Loona in particular shocked at what the human who brought it turned into. "What happened to him?" asked Moxie as he took a few steps forward as he rubbed his eyes in disbelief at what just happened and the changes that came with it. "Mox, for the last time, how the hell should I know?" An irate but still surprised Blitz proclaimed as he continued to look at the child his workers saved turned into an entirely different beast. Said beast was that of a nine-tailed fox, but whose shape was that of a small child. The body itself looked nothing like the human body before it, as its face contained the facial structure of a vulpine fox breed with long string whiskers on both sides of the snout. Brown marked dots traveled underneath both sides of his eyes and a dark brown underline from its lower eyelids. The rest of his fur was a mixture of white underneath the coat, while the top layer was that of a soft golden color. Not too bright but not too dull to be unpleasant to the eyes. The hands and feet were a mix of regular human hands, with only his fingertips being curved sharply. All in all, the boy himself was a far cry from his old appearance. Seeing that whatever had just happened seemed to be over, it was Millie who took it upon herself to get near the newly transformed fox and kneeling next to him, as well as placing a gentle hand on his forehead. She rubbed the front end with soothing strokes, which had the effect of steering awake the Jinchuriki. Opening his eyes reveals a set of luminous blue hues that seems to glow if one were to look closely. "Where am I?" he hoarsely croaked out while looking at the person kneeling next to him. "It's okay," Millie spoke with a paternal tone. "You're with friends and no one is going to hurt you. Don't count on it, Mills." SHHHHH. Now having his bearings together, he stood up from the coach and thanks to the women next to him and was surprised to say the least in what he saw in front of him. The color set of characters that stared at him with wide eyes, starting with the tallest figure in the room, not much to be left to the imagination to be said that the creature himself was a tall anthropomorphic owl with a white porcelain mask, toggled together with red pupilless eyes with another set right above the other. His entire body was covered in dark blue feathers with white and gray accents. His outfit practically spelled out royalty as it consisted of a red button-up tunic, gray-colored trousers, and surcoat with white fur outlining its cloth. The man itself looked at him with an intense gaze as if he was something of an odd display. Though in his opinion, the three next to him were by far the strangest, as two shared the same red skin color, with the tallest of the two having white spots. The sameness in their features extended to them having black and white horns followed by a long spiky tail connected to their tailbone. Their color and their eyes were the same as it depicted yellow sclera with black slit eyes. The closeness and similarities even extended to their clothing as it was completely styled in black. This would be the end in appearance and looks, as the short one had white hair with white dimples on his cheeks. His lower section was vastly different from his taller counterpart, as they were lanky digitigrade legs with cloven red hooves. The taller one, though similar to the other one, had a distinct heart-shaped symbol on his forehead and had more stripes covering sections of his exposed body. The feet themselves were straight and lanky boot-shaped feet. The sameness could also be applied to the female who attended him, as she shared the same type of horns, though a bit smaller, with the black lines being fuller and the whites being short lines in size. Her clothes were simple, as it merely showcased a black shirt together with ripped pants, matching a sort of punkish look. One of the more noticeable features was that of a heart-shaped tattoo on the right shoulder, with smaller blotches of white around her body. Last, but not least, was that of a wolf who looked around his age given the height, and if the theme of black being the sole color that the majority of these people had for a wardrobe choice, then she took top prize, as she looked to be the epitome of a goth girl, chain choker and all. In appearance she seemed to be your typical hound if said hound was bipedal and wore clothing fitting to an angsty teenager. The protruding muzzle showed a set of sharp pearly whites with a gray nose at the end of the beak. The majority of her look was overshadowed by the voluminous of gray-white fur that went together with the constantly swaying tail on her backside and the long trek of gray hair cascading down her back. The wide-eye look she currently sported revealed wider eyes as in a pool of red sockets. "Who are you people?" he stated once he had a bit of sense knocked back into him as he lay awake seeing such strange creatures watching him. "Millie," said the female imp with a joyful, before pointing at her spouse. "And right there is my husband Moxie. Mox, say hello." "Greetings. That's my boss, Blitzo." But the O silent at the end, don't forget about that. "The girl sitting on the desk is our boss's daughter, her name is Loona, but just be careful not to get too close unless you don't want something bitten off." "Up yours." "The tall fellow next to my husband is our boss business partner, his name is Stolas," oddly putting an emphasis on the word partner with a wiggle of her eyebrows. "Charmed to make your acquaintance, and may we know your name as well?" Naruto Yuzu. Maka nervously replied at being with an audience of inhuman creatures. Are you going to do something to me? On the contrary my dear lad, you are currently in the midst of fine company, exclaimed the tall owl, who once more got too close to comfort, making the young blonde reel back at the stature of the bird. This may come as a surprise, but you now reside in the world down below. He could feel the women next to the coach tense a bit but chose to ignore it for now. Where would that be? Feeling anxious in the pit of his stomach at what the answer might be. Hell. That can't be right, I must be dreaming all of these. This was soon exasperated once he noticed the changes that happened to his body. What happened to my body? Getting up from the coach with a nodocile leap, the effort proved to be void as the moment he touched the floor as the 4-eye sensation of pawed feet made him toppled over. Picking himself up he noticed that his body also felt as though it was uncharacteristically warm than usual, as the feeling of softness could be felt. Looking at the base of his arms that he noticed the light-colored fur shrouding every single portion of his body. My body is different, why is my body like this? Asking to whomever knew, not even bothering to look up as he was too busy checking out the new version of his body. If I may interject, this could be partially my fault, Stolas spoke up, grabbing the attention of the rest of the corporate employees. I believe it to be a physical reaction to my intervening and healing you with my enchantment, though I also suspect it to be the creature that inhabited your body. Creature? And a most powerful one at that. By any chance do you happen to know what it was? Craning his head to the side while hunching forward. I really don't know what to say. I think I may know the answer to that, said Moxie with a bit of uncertainty as he became nervous under the attention given to him by the overlord. Splendid. Then what would it be then? The people that we saved him from referred him as something called the QB, which I think may be a nine-tailed demon in Japanese folklore. That starts to make sense now. It does. The boy himself seems to be more important than I originally thought. Really? Said Naruto, who was still shocked at the extra appendages on top of his forehead and the swing of his multiple tails. Child, you cannot begin to fathom what has now transpired in the wake of your transformation. Seeing that the conversation has seemed to veer off course to strange BS, Blitzo quickly grew irritated as he looked over at the clock on the wall and saw the time it showed, and remembering of the job that they still needed to do. Everyone stop talking and let's get back on track on what really matters. But what, Ab? Kid, I know that you're having a crisis of reality right now, but we have bigger fish to fry, Blitzo said before turning to both Mills and Moxie. M, we still have a job to do. Pack your shit and let's roll out. I love a man who takes charge. Stuff it, bitch. Is that an invitation for later? For shit sakes, Loona, open a portal please, I really want get this job done without any more fucking interruptions. Got it? Sir, should we really be leaving our new guest by himself? Don't break your arm jerking yourself off, Mox, Loona can keep an eye on him. He then turned to look at Naruto with a heated gaze. And you, don't even think about doing something to my Looney, because if I even see a speck of hair on her sweet little head tossed, I'll make you wish you died as a child. He is a child, sir, and please don't threatening children, that'll be a new low even for you. Trust me, you haven't seen the lowest version of me. I can speak for everyone here on that being the last thing we ever want to stand witness for. Shut up, Mox. Got the portal ready. At least I know I can trust you, Looney, I know you'll never let me down. Whatever, just go finish the job, Blitzo. Mox, I don't know about leaving him alone by himself, stated Mills with clear worry on the safety of the boy. I know, Mills, I know. No need to worry, I can keep a close eye on the little ones, as if they were my own, said Stolas with his everyday charm, not even looking at them, as he was too distracted watching Blitzo talking to his daughter. You will? Trust me, I'll make sure to keep them safe, now looking at them as a means of quelling their worries. Now scurry on now, I can't imagine Blitz being too keen and waiting too long. Not wanting to keep their boss waiting a second longer, they both shared a look with each other, knowing they didn't have much choice but to trust in Stolas. Millie on her part looked back at the young fox, who seemed to be still struggling, adjusting to his new surroundings and standing upright on his changed limbs. With nothing else to talk about, she and her husband joined Blitz in stepping through the newly opened portal that closed as soon as they jumped through. This now left a human-turned fox, an owl overlord, and a goth hellhound to keep the fort protected until the other three came back. A few hours later. Right, it's decided that this had to be a dream, a bad one to boot. He said as kept running his hands together as a means of ridding himself of the fur appendages that greeted him. I bet that I'll wake up in my bed at any moment now feeling happy of convincing his state of mind of everything being a figment of his imagination. I can't wait to tell old man Saratobi about this. Oh my god, can you please shut up with that denial crap, you're here, and that's it. Yelled out Loona, who was fed up of hearing him repeat himself. All you're doing is repeating yourself like a broken record. Yeah right, as something like this could ever be real. How about I come over and show you how real I am, baring her teeth at the blonde. Bring it, pooch. Before the two could even manage to land a hit on each other, they both immediately stopped on their tracks at the heavy atmosphere that pushed down on them. The pressure felt as though they were sinking into the deepest ocean waters. It didn't take long for the two of them to figure out who was responsible for this feeling. Now children, I promised that nothing would happen to jeopardize your safety, that includes coming to blows with each other. His eyes glowing a dangerous shade of red as the light near him seemed to be sucked out from existence, leaving only pitch darkness. So can you do me the courtesy of not grabbing each other by the throat, and please refrain from any harsh infighting, as long as I am here, understood? Yes sir, sure, Stolas both exclaimed with clear fear in their voices of the veiled threat of the bird overlord. Excellent. Returning to his joyous mood. Now that we have that settled, how about we use this opportunity to get you up to speed about your new life here with us, situating himself on one of the cushioned seats of the meeting table and directing Naruto to one of the other chairs opposite of him. Please, have a seat. Knowing that he had no other choice but to do what the owl wanted, sitting on a chair was far from the hardest decision the fox had to make, but still retained a bit of irritation of the dog girl currently staring holes at the back of his head that he could without. Sure, no problem sitting against a seat, trying not to look too uncomfortable or making contact with the double set of eyes. Sorry if these sound a bit rude, but do I stare at your lower eyes, or both of them? Oh, these gesturing to the upper set. Don't worry about them, think of them as accessories, they really don't add much, other than giving me an extra boost in sight, chuckling a bit at the question. So be free to stare at whichever you want, I won't feel inclined to say otherwise. If you say so. So, let's get back to the topic at hand, please share with me how you came to be taken in by these imps. Placing his hands under his chin, all staring at him as if he was prey. As is not every day that a human such as yourself is brought down here. Is it that uncommon? Uncommon, my dear child, is practically non-existent, as the mere act of bringing a live soul here in hell is punishable to the highest decree in accordance to the Scarlet Gospels. Loona's ears perked up at hearing the word punish, as she automatically thought of her dad being carted off by the sentinels. A feeling of dread grew when the image of her dad beating with an inch of his life in a dark cell popped into her mind. Unfortunately, the same treatment couldn't be said about the well-being of Mox and Millie. How bad would it be if they managed to find out that I was here thinking the same type of thought as Loona did? Would they kill me? Death would be considered a blessing for those charged with the crime, as the worst possible means of torture are implemented and other unfathomable devices too cruel to think of, speaking a dead serious tone as he continued with the grave possibility of the act being exposed. The same punishment would also include the likes of targeting those associated with said breakers of the law, such as the likes of colleagues, friends, and family members, regardless of their standing. Even you. Especially me, eyes gaining a red-tinted glow as his features darkened over such an outcome to befall his wife and daughter. My punishment would no doubt be handled by the head ruler personally, as he expects his highest commanders to be above breaking such a creed. You're not mad at Blitzo for bringing this idiot here, are you? Interjected Loona into the conversation, curious what the overlord thought of a human carried off to Imp City by her dad. Oh, I'm positively livid inside, but don't fret too much over it, child, I'll make sure to remind him about his transgression with our upcoming session. Now sporting a light blush across his white mask-like face at the thought of what he'll make Blitzo do to make this up to him. Always with this fucking guy making think of my dad naked with him in bed doing all that perverted shit, it's bad innit that I have to hear it 24/7 at home. Despite her genuine dislike of Stolas, Loona knew when to bite her tongue to avoid making any off comments about their main benefactor. That, and she was fully aware of what Stolas was capable of if provoked, given his status as a member of the Gosha line and the perks it came with the title. Man, just hearing that makes me want to kick myself for not being better prepared for the type of stunt the villagers pulled on me. Villagers? Remarked Stolas, settling back on his chair, once more returning to his carefree attitude. The people from my village sorta had a mean streak anytime they happened to see me, much of which I never really understood why, as I never did nothing to warrant the type of hate they gave me. You don't say. Yeah, it sorta just happened on a daily basis, never had a chance of asking them why they would want to hurt me, as they would rather bash my head on the side of a wall than spare the time of having a civil conversation. But the sound of you talking, no wonder they did what they did. Are you always such a pain in the ass to everyone, or is just something that comes naturally to you? Because I am really curious if it's the latter, becoming fed up again at the wolf girl's jab at him. Like you'll know the difference. Children, what did I say about fighting? Good, about we get back to where we left off, sending a knowing look at Loona about her unwanted comments. This time without any further interruptions. Loona didn't have to be told twice and went back to scrolling through her phone. Sure, getting back on track with his story. The villagers, despite wanting to have a crack at me, couldn't do much without having to worry about the Anbu intervening. Were they your protectors? Sometimes, but not always, eyes dimming a bit and remembering some of the more unfavorable events. Though it did not stop them from trying hard enough and getting to me. How in the world does a child your age have the will to survive such an ordeal? He suddenly reverted back to his usual self as he continued to talk. Growing up an orphan makes you grow up quickly, and though it's a bit of a drag being by yourself most of the time, you get used in time. That doesn't sound as much of a living. What can I say, shrugging his shoulders at the remark. Things just kinda panned out like that for me. The more Stolas learned about the boy, the more he started to picture the type of life he had led up to this point, and even for a demonic creature such as himself, would be the last thing he'll ever do to someone as young as him. It seemed by chance that he was saved by the imps through their accidental summoning onto the topside. You mentioned that you were from a village called Konoha, right? Stolas asked as he wanted to know more about where the blonde was from. Yep. Is my hometown, now sounding excited of talking about his village. That's where I will one day be Hokage, and a good one at that. What is this Hokage, is that some type of title? Curious at hearing such a term. Is this person someone of importance? Are you kidding now, wide-eyed at hearing someone not know who the Hokage was? The Hokage is the leader of the entire village, and not just that he is one of the strongest shinobi there is. Saying all of that, while standing a bit upright with his hands on the table, still in disbelief that he didn't know who Sarutobi was. Forgive me if I don't share your sentiment about your leader, but here in hell, I doubt anyone has heard such a person as you claim him to be. Well, they should. Looking at the cloak, Stolas noted the time that had passed since he began his conversation with the young fox and wondered how the imps were doing at the moment, but knew not to worry too much as he knew that they could handle a simple job. Though past assignments left much to consider in how they went about executing their intended targets without having to botch their assignments due to poor management. Loona herself could attest to the reason why she stressed the importance to blitz in completing the mission successfully, as the thought of failure meant no one would ever hire them again, given the poor results they had to show so far. So Naruto once more grabbing the attention of the former human. Do you by chance know what a QP is? Only through what I heard the townsfolk talk about and some of the things they would call me every time they caught sight of me walking around. Do you imagine as to the reason why they would call you such a thing? I guess because I was born on the day that the QB attacked the village, and because I was born with the fox whiskers on my face, they assume that I was the cause of the disaster. That is truly a simple-minded mentally of the ignorant masses. I guess. Still trying to adapt to the type of wording that the owl used. But even though that pained me for them to treat me like a monster, I still wish deep down they would some way accept me and who I was. This caught both Stolas and Loona for a loop as what Naruto had to say, as they could not believe that he would say such a thing about the people who tormented him since the moment he was born. Why would you say something like that, especially for how they treated you? Because I exist, and how they may see me doesn't define who I really am inside, and with time I could prove them wrong in how they labeled me since birth over something that I did have control over, speaking each word with the utmost sincerity to the still shocked silent crowd in the room. This is something that I thrive for. Even with all of the horrible things done to me, I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me beg or recant at something that I was not from the beginning. Though capturing in the dead of night and dragging me to the middle of the forest of death to be sacrificed to a demon was a new one for me, he grumbled as vividly recalled what had happened to him just a few hours ago. How would you go by changing their opinion of you if they were willing to, as far as attempted murder? By becoming Hokage. And do you really think that would come to rid all that abuse that they afflicted on you, that if by chance you become this Hokage that they would come to accept as who you are? Yeah, why wouldn't they? Being Hokage means that people choose you to be their leader and the one who above all else to protect and defend its citizens from danger. Dear child, you are truly an innocent soul living in a sinful world. Before he could reply back, the sound of a small chime of Loona's phone ranged out, grabbing the two sitting at the table's attention. What was that sound? My phone, she stated without even looking at him, while getting off the desk she was sitting on and taking with her a navy-colored book with golden pages. I just got the heads up to open a portal back. Oh goody, Blitz's back, Stolas proclaimed loudly with a huge smile at the thought of his side piece returning. I can't wait to tell him about our little conversation. What about the other two? Yeah, them two, now even sounding convincing and sharing the same sentiment about either Moxie or Millie's return. With no other words needing to be spoken between the two, they proceeded to silently look on as they saw Loona open the blue book in her hands and mutter some words under her breath, resulting in a bluish glow emitting from her open hand. Whatever language that she spoke while scrolling through the text seemed entirely foreign to the Konoha native, as it was language that he had never heard of, but sounded oddly similar to the one used by the leader of the group who kidnapped him. He didn't have to ponder too long over the strange wording, as the blushing glow of the wolf's girl hand soon cleared as soon as she waved at her hand on the chalk circle in the office, leading to a ring of fire to sprung out instantly. What did she just do? Just one of many tricks stored in that totem in her hands. Wanting to ask what he meant by that was cut short as the familiar faces of the corporate stooges jumped through their side of the portal looking more festive than when they first left in such a hassle. The sound of swirling flames of the temporary portal closed the moment they stepped back into hell. "Now ladies, and to a lesser degree men, is how you get the job done," yelled Blitzo in total triumph of having pulled off the hit before the dateline. "Ain't that right, Mills?" "You better believe it," before turning to her husband who, while looking tired, sported a smile on himself. "Don't you think so, Mox? Though it took a bit of time to get out target, I think I can say that this was by far one of our cleanest hits." "Can't say the same thing about the chick he was with, but I'm guessing having the guy's head explode in front of you is not something you want while he's fucking you." "I don't know about that, but I know what I like when it's just the two us," Blitzo said, the overlord now standing near that tallest of the imps with a reddish hue on his cheeks. "But maybe we should tried something similar with our upcoming appointment, don't you think? Stolas, can't you ever wait for me to celebrate in peace without having to worry about you trying to cop a feel every time you get close to me?" "What can I say, I can't help myself in feeling such a boat." "God damn it, not this shit again," grumbled Loona once more, and having to hear in full detail all the perverted shit her dad got into with his boss. "Swear I'll probably ended up shooting myself if I have to hear this in person." Luna's dislike of the type of affection that Stolas gave Blitz went unknown to the rest of the adults present, but if she looked back to the former human, she would see him notice the reaction she had when looking at the bird fiend. Though he wanted to ask her why she had that type of expression, the sound of Stolas clearing his throat got everyone's attention. "Now that all three of you are back, I wish to speak with you in private matters about important business." "Oh, for the love God, it better not be a secret firing, because we just finished a good gig and the last thing I want is to be fucked and not the type you're thinking of." "You know me too well, Blitz." "Not that hard of a red, Stolas. Regardless, we should move our little envoy to another room." "What, can't you just talk out here?" asked Naruto, who felt that they were going to talk about him. "It won't be nothing too serious, just a bit of adult talk," he said as he looked at him with a bit of seriousness in his eyes. "Nothing to worry your furry little head about it." "Okay." Seeing his despondent eyes of what Stolas had in mind with them, Millie walked over to the boy and placed a hand on his shoulder. The result was Naruto looking up and seeing the warmth displayed in her own glowing orbs. "Hey now, don't get down on yourself, it won't do you any favors in having wrinkles a kid your age," rubbing gently one of his ears behind his head, causing a low purring to be heard. Something that elicited a quick blush from the blonde, though for Millie it made all the more cute in her eyes. "By the time you know it, we'll be done with our chat." Though it made it feel a little better, it still didn't relieve him of the worry about what will happen to him now that he was no longer his usual self and now part animal. "Hey Mills. Let's get it on with it, the sooner we get this over with the sooner we can go home," yelled out Blitz, who opened the door of this office while forcibly pushing Mox through it, followed by Stolas, who trailed a finger on one of Blitz's horn before entering in, much to the chagrin of the tall imp. "Going, boss," she replied back before once more turning to look at Naruto. "Now just wait out here with Loona and we'll be right out in a jiff," finishing it off with one more conforming look directed to him and heading into her boss's office. "Remember what I said, Foxy, don't think of laying a finger on my loony unless you want to finish what those dumb pricks cowled upstairs," capping it off with a warning stare that severely lacked the affection from the one given to him by the female imp. Naruto's response was flicking his middle finger at Blitz. The sound of a loud door slamming was all he needed to hear from having to look at the distasteful man who shared the same personality as the hound sitting near him, still looking at her phone, though a smile smirk was seen from the corner of mouth at the look her dad gave at being dissed by the former human. An awkward silence soon fell over the office space as the presence of two young children, who had nothing in common with each other, kept to their own devices as the adults talked with themselves. "So what do you do around here?" attempting to break the silence with some small talk. "Do you live here? Is the one named Blitzo your dad, or something? Why are you talking to me?" "Pardon me? What's with the small talk? A moment ago you sounded as though you didn't like me," telling him as she continued to look through her phone. "Why change that now?" "I just guess that now that we have some time to talk with each other, we use this to learn a bit about each other, because I feel as though we started off on the wrong foot." "No, I think I made it clear what I think about you. And that is. You're annoying." Taken aback by her blunt response, he wanted to reply back with his own retort but knew better in stooping at her game. Though this didn't mean that he wouldn't get back at her at his own game. "Okay, not the type of response that I was hoping for, but is a start." At least thinking about a moment and what to say next, he saw that black object she had in her hands, which she would regularly click on the glowing screen. "I've been meaning to ask, but what is it that you've been playing with?" Knowing what he was referring to, she was surprised at how someone her age didn't know what a cell phone was. "You mean by this?" waving her mobile at him, that got a nod from the fox. "It's my cell phone, don't you have two?" What's a cell phone? Are you kidding me now? Shocked by his utter remark. You really don't know what a phone is? A shrug of his shoulders was all Loona had to say to answer her question. Where the hell do you even come from? Konoha. No, what part of the world do you even come from, not to know what a phone is? Land of Fire. Oh my god, rubbing a hand on her temple from his little back and forth that was getting them nowhere. What's the big deal if I know about them or not? It's not like they sound as though they're the best thing out there. You pray you didn't just say that with such a straight face, now looking wide eyes in disbelief at what he just said. This is source of life itself, without it nothing would get done. This thing I have in my hand is one of, if not the best creations ever made, it literally helps make the world spin. Right. Surprised in the type of emotion the snarky goth was displaying in contrast to her quiet mean-spirited facade she had with him not seconds ago. I still don't see the big deal about it. If you don't know what a phone is, what the hell did you do to pass the time? Well, when I wasn't running for my life from angry villagers, I mostly pulled pranks around the town or hanged out at either at a ramen shop or with old man Saratobi, smiling at the happier times he had while making sure to keep safe from violent mobs. What else? I also went to school, the library when I was allowed to, and sometimes I would sneak in to watch films at the local theater. You won't know what a movie is if you don't get to see Yuki Fujika's film. She really is amazing, blushing at the last part. That sounds really boring. What else do you expect of me? What I did with the utmost enjoyment with the people I could call friends, and that means more to me than what the little black box you have in your hands could do. Oh, that's where you're wrong, because little thing right here can show you the world and back. Putting an emphasis on the phone by pressing done on one of the apps on her phone that let out loud ping. Show me then. I thought you'll never ask. The foreseeable time that the meeting between the imps and their overlord benefactor, the two youngsters spend their time surfing through Loona's phone and seeing everything that Naruto never knew existed. The moment that most of the adults exited the office, what laid in front of them surprised them to say the least, more so Mox and Blitzo in the way the Hound was acting than they're privy to. What other video do you want to watch next? Let's watch the next one that's popping out. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I know, Mox, I know, but is actually happening. Loona was actually being nice to someone and not being a pain for change. Even Blitz was so shocked that he couldn't say anything as he stood in place as if he were a statue. The moment was soon broken by the sound of Stolas proclaiming out loud the scene in front of them. My, don't they just seem like the cutest things sitting together? The reaction of it was Loona distancing herself from the blonde as quickly as possible, though the blush on her face could not hide how she felt. Naruto on his part was still too distracted as he had his face glued on the screen, still watching the ever-endless catalog of videos. That soon ended as well as the phone was snatched quickly from his hands, courtesy of the still blushing hound girl. Hey. I'll show more later. Besides, the others already came out, pointed at them with the end of her clawed thumb. Following the direction she was pointing at, he saw the rest staring at them with varying degrees of emotions. Is there something wrong? Nothing at all, said Mox, followed by quick nods from the rest of the imps, though Stolas still displayed a wide-open smile on his face. So what did you all talk about? He asked, even though he kinda knew the answer. We were discussing some changes on how we should conduct our future hits and just taking some further precautions in committing any more serious mistakes. Speak for yourself, Mox. We've done nothing but provide the best service in making hits. But without the success of making sure we killed the right target, we should count ourselves lucky that someone considered hiring us in the first place for this task, given our previous track record. Always the Debbie Downer with you. Just stating the facts, sir. Well, give it someone who gives a shit. Now, if we can get past this small talk, I think we should make a decision regarding our little friend. His newly fur-covered ears perked up once Stolas said that and started to grow anxious about what would be the verdict on his current situation. While we were having our discussion inside, both Millie and her husband Mox suggested of being your temporary guardians during your stay here in hell. Really? Shocked at the thought of having someone take care of him. Most definitely, and they themselves have no issue in letting you stay with them. Yeah, right, Mills was the one who suggested it. Mox was just beep-whipped into saying yes, looking at his shorter coworker. Ain't that right, Mox? That's not how it happened. I was just suggesting that the apartment needed some more space made before we brought him home. Was that before Mills agreed to it, or you did? That's what I thought. Regardless of who said yes, I think this may prove to be the best choice for all three of you, as we can't in good conscience choose to leave a child to defend himself among the rest of hell's sinners. I would. We know you would, Blitz. So would that mean that they would be like my parents? The statement then made everyone stop talking as they focused back at the young fox, whose face told them everything they needed to know about his status as an orphan, as shown from what everyone learned from Stolas. Seeing this as a sensitive subject, Mills took it upon herself to slowly walk towards the boy, who himself became tense from her approach, but chose to stay still and waited for her to get near him. I know this may be coming out all of a sudden, but I think it may be the best thing for all us if you went to live with us for the meantime. Would I have a bed to sleep on? You'll have anything we can offer, and more if it means making you as safe as possible, she said with the utmost truth with each word spoken. The reaction that she got from the former human was that of a tight hug, something that surprised Millie, but nonetheless accepted it with open arms. Thank you so much. Starting to cry at the prospect of having parents. Millie, who could feel some of the wet blotches start to stain her shirt, only smiled at the response and replied only by tightening her hold on him. Moxie on his part smiled at the scene in front of him, especially from his wife who knew her way around children. Stolas looked as happy as he could be in seeing such a tender moment, something that reminded him of his child Octavia, and reminded himself to give her a huge welcoming hug when he got home. Loona, while not the most sentimental type, knew not to spoil the moment happening right now and went back to using her phone, but if anyone was paying attention to her, they would have seen a smile form. The sentiment ended with Blitz, who looked as though he would vomit at the sappy event, but refrained from saying anything as even he wasn't that much of an ass to interrupt on important scene. Though this did not stop him from rolling his eyes and almost gagging at the sight. I told you he'll be happy, Millie said to Mox, who now joined her side. I guess we can make this work. Mox may have had some reservation in taking in someone, especially someone as young as Naruto, but those thoughts left as soon as they formed once he saw how happy Mills was. Naruto calmed down a bit, saw that Mox was standing near Mills, and wondered what to call them, afraid if this was not to be true. Would this mean that I could get to call you two Mom and Dad? Sweetie, you can calls us anything you want and don't be afraid to even say it. Are you sure? For sure, ain't that right, Mox? No problem with me. Can we go home now if that's okay with the both of you? I'm starting to get a bit tired. After such a long day, I think we all deserve some rest. Even with his body of that of a fox, Naruto did not let that bother him as much as it when he woke, as the feeling of having someone to take care of him instead of being alone made him forget about the shock of having a different body. The only thing he wanted was to go somewhere he felt safe and wanted. Yeah, let's go home. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.